Hi everyone, this is Fred. Today's tutorial is once again about isometric drawing. Today we will see a little bit more advanced features and some tips about how to create some isometric drawing, and I hope you will enjoy it. So let's start. Okay, like I mentioned in my previous tutorial about isometric drawing, it's very interesting, profitable and time-saving to create library. So you create a bunch of solid shapes, very basic shapes, and so you can use them again and again. You can combine them and you can create some more sophisticated complex shapes by using several of them. And it's very interesting because you can have a collection of buildings, vehicles, trees, or some elements, every kind of element you may need in an illustration. And we will see also that in some cases it's very interesting that we can change all of them in one click by using symbols. Okay, so first a little reminder about how to use the shapes we just create here. We have L shape like the previous one. So you remember, you just use the shape editor here, and you just need to move. You select the node, press shift to have several of them, and you just move them along the grid, and thanks to the snapping it will go smoothly. And just moving like this you can create shapes. So what is interesting also is that you can, if you want to work fast, you can also just add some node by just double clicking on one of like here I just click on one of the lines and I add a node. The point is I add another node and then I have another node, and by doing this, once I have these 4 nodes here, I just can make a new shape. Okay, so it's very interesting, it's very quick, you can build a lot of different shapes. So what I do now, I just want to complete this shape, so I just, at the beginning I can just make it random like I'm doing now. I use the shape editor and I just come and snap it to the grid. And once I've done that, I can select my shape and I will use the style here, style picker, which is interesting because I just click this tool and I go on the shape I want to copy the style, and up in one click I have the same stroke and color. So you see that it's quite fast. Of course I'm a little bit slow while explaining it, but if you want to play with square shapes and do something square angle shapes, it's very easy and fast to create some new volume inside your solid. So you double click on a line when you want to create a new node, and also once you create a new shape you can just pick the style from the previous one and you can have it. So this is very simple, basic, but for all the square angle shape it works very fine. Okay, so now we can just make some kind of window that we will put on this shape. Let's consider this shape as a building. We say, okay, it's a building, a strange shape. So I will build a window. So the first thing is I just create a rectangle using the pen and snapping to the grid like we just did. When I want to draw several consecutive shapes, what I do is I just keep my pen, I press Command on my Mac, and you see that my tool becomes the transform tool, and I click outside of a shape I just did, and when I release I have my pen tool back and I can draw again. So I save the time of going back to the menu and choosing the other tool and doing it again. I just draw this new shape, I press Command, click outside. So doing my shape. Okay, I have some kind of window here, and it's quite interesting. But some people may say, okay, your window is fine, but you see, I think that the depth of the wall, we can consider this part as the glass window, and this is the hole of the window with the depth of the wall. And some people may say, yeah, but it's too big, and the problem is I depend on the grid I did. So I need to have a smaller grid, a more narrow grid. Actually, not really. A more narrow grid can be confusing sometimes because you have so much line, and it can be troublesome when you want to snap. It will snap to every of each line, so you want to make deep enough, I mean narrow enough, but not too small grid, because you will snap to everything. So what you can do, you take your shape editor, you remember that actually the shapes, we keep proportions. So for instance, if I do this, I will take this and I will do another window that looks a bit like the previous one but bigger. And if I don't change the value of my one square width or 1 square height, what I get is another window, but this window of course has a thinner depth. And since we are isometric, we just select everything, we press Shift, and we can transform it, keeping the proportions. And so we have a small window like we had before, but as you can see, its depth is smaller. So this case can also apply if you have something like a shape which has like a odd number on the top, for instance, and an even number on the back. Can be confusing, like, okay, I have to find the half of my square or something like that. No, you don't need to have a half of your square. You just multiply by 2, and everything you will, all the number you will have will be even. And so then you build your shape, and once your shape is built, you just need to transform it, to scale it, to make it the right size. Okay, so just keep this in mind. Okay, so now this window, I just want to give it some shades for 2 reasons. One of the reasons is I want to give some depth feeling. So if I put some something like this, and the second reason is it helps me to recognize, to identify each of the shape. When I'm doing some more complex illustration, I really like to be able to identify each of the shape I have before setting it with some gradients or whatever. So I'm doing some kind of zoning, which means that I give some color, temporary color or shade to any shape I just draw, but it's not, of course, the color we use in the end. Is just a matter of identification, so I can check where are my shapes. So once I have this window, I just select everything and I do Command G and I group it. So it's quite simple. So I unzoom it. Okay, so this is my window. I will make it a little bit smaller. Okay, and so now this window belongs to this building. No, maybe a little bit bigger. Okay, so now this window belongs to this building. So remember that this window, I can just, by clicking Alt and dragging, I just duplicate it, and I use the mirror tool here on the top to flip horizontally my shape, and then it will be matching the other side. Okay, so it's interesting. To use this. Okay, so previously we were talking about the library, creating a library. So you have maybe seen it on the previous tutorial. So what I will do, I will use the symbols. So to use symbols, what I do is I go to Panel, Styles, and Symbols, and then the Symbols panel appears. Okay, symbols, what are they? They are some kind of object that you can multiply, and this object will always have a link with the first one. The symbol, the first symbol is like some kind of parent, and all the other symbols are the children, which means that when you change the parent's color, all the children will change their colors. So it means that you can modify very easily a lot of elements in one click. Every copy of the first element will change in one click. In VectorStyler, you have different way to handle it. You also have the clone way, which is also very interesting. But today we just talk about the symbols, and also because it's common to different softwares. So, how to create the symbols? I have my group here, I create before. I just press plus here, create a symbol from the selected object. As a name, I will say window because I'm quite creative. I will call it window 1. It's very creative. Okay, so now I have a window symbol. This is not this one, this is a window symbol which is in the library. So what I can do with a window symbol is what? I take my window, is selected here, I go to the tool which is the symbol stamp tool. I click on it, and now every time I will press, I will create a window. Okay, so it's quite interesting. I will willingly erase this one, not because it was not a line, but it wasn't, because we'll go to the second part. Okay, so you see you can easily reproduce. Right now is basically the same thing as copying object, but once we want to modify them, we will see that it gets done, the job gets done, in a one click. So I take this group again, I double click on it to go to the isolation mode to get inside my group. I take the glass, what we call the glass, and I want it dark, quite dark. Okay, there is no light. Once I'm done, I press escape. Okay, so now I have this window which is obviously with no light. So what I will do is I take it and I create an object that I call window 2. Yeah, I know you guessed it. Okay, and then I unclick, I take my window 2, I go back to my symbol stamp tool, and I can press here, for instance. Okay, so now I have different kind of windows starting from the same initial one. But what is very interesting is now this one is still an object. Okay, it's not the symbol, but these are the symbol. I take this one, I select the first window, and I use this function, replace the symbol with a selected object. And once I'm done, good night. I replace the symbol, so it means that you remember the first symbol, the window 1 was the bright one, and every child of the original shape get its features. In that case, it's the dark window glass. Okay, so it's interesting. These two are not moving. Why? Because these two are just copies I did from this one at the beginning. Just copies. They're not symbols shape. They're just copies. That's why they didn't react. Of course, what I can do is I can reverse, like I go back to my place, to my window. Okay, I just okay, and then I make it bright again, escape. Okay, and I will use it as a reference for this window 1 again. So I will replace the symbol with the selected object, and up, it's daylight again. So you can imagine that on a very complex shape, like you have maybe some trees or a lot of elements like this, with just 2 or 3 different features, like you can have 2 or 3 different windows, and you can have a very a large amount of difference in the element you produce. So it can be very useful, including if you want to make animated GIF or something like that, you want to play with that, and you can modify the element. Or sometimes it can be something very simple, like you build, for instance, a map, a street map or something like that, and you have a style to represent, I don't know, the red light in the street, and someone comes and you say, no, we don't like this sign, we want to change it, but you have like 25 or even more of this sign, and they have, it took you some time to put them on the right position, and so instead of having to copy and paste again and again and again, if you use the symbol, you have this symbol, you change the first symbols, and all the symbols will change at the same time. So it's a quite powerful tool. Like I said, it's not the only one in VectorStyler, because there is also the clone tool, but today we just have an eye on this one, and you see it's quite effective. Okay, so since we're talking about library, there are some basic shapes. Of course, not only the square angle, but some we will see. So one famous and very useful shape is a cylinder. So a cylinder, when you do a cylinder, you start with some ellipse based on the isometric square. Okay, in 2D, remember that a circle fits inside the square and outside as well, and so it's the same thing in isometric. If you want to have nice isometric circle, so it's this. So this one, you see 2 units here, square, and it fits. So I duplicate it by pressing Alt and Shift. Alt to duplicate and Shift to keep the vertical alignment. Okay, so I will use this to make a body. I just spare one, Alt and Shift on the bottom. This one will be the cap. Very often, whatever, it's isometric, but maybe more with the isometric than the others, but when I do isometric drawing and when I do vector drawing in general, I do a lot of copies of my object. I start with them and I copy them again and again because they have different use. So this one will be the cap of my cylinder. Here I have my 2 parts. I just need a rectangle. Okay. I make this rectangle stick to my shapes, and then I select everything and I use the Boolean operation and union. Okay, union is done. So now I just need to put my cap here. So what I just need to do is to be sure that the cap, because right now I'm working, I just have stroke and no fill, so I just bring it to front to be sure that it will be above the body of my cylinder. So okay, I have a cylinder. So this kind of cylinder can become a lot of things. So this is a very basic shape, which is very useful. What I just need to keep in mind is you cannot change its value like this, you know. If you use the transform tool, you see that it will alterate the ellipse, so you cannot do that. Okay, so what you do is you take the shape editor and you just select the 3 nodes on the bottom, and it's these 3 nodes that you're moving. I press Shift to be sure to be vertical, and you see that I can give the height I want. So starting from that, I can have any cylinder I want. It can be just like some kind of coin, you know, or it can be some mug. It can be some whatever I want. Okay, so just keep that this is the node you move, and you don't use the transform tool. And some of the some of the square shape object, it works the same way. You don't change their size by transforming the tool, you just move the point along the isometric grid, and that's the way you do that. Okay, so we can think about, okay, let's say we will make a vehicle wheel. First thing is, like I said sometimes, just keep in mind of moving the things at the last minute. What I mean is, it's easier in that case. You see, I just change the height very easily vertically with the shift. It's easier than if I want to do it on this angle, because sometimes move a little bit, the snappings and other things like this. So very often it's more convenient to do everything you have to prepare the things in a very horizontal or vertical position, and then you rotate in the end, but you don't rotate at the beginning. Okay, I will just copy and paste this ellipse to make some kind of rim. I use Control and Shift, so I can make it smaller. I use Control and Shift. Control make things starting from the center, means symmetrical. I shrink from the center and not from one side, and of course Shift to maintain the same proportions. Okay, so I have this. So the second thing is, okay, I want to have some kind of bolt. I call it bolt. I don't know if it's the accurate name, but I would say bolt for my rim. I just copy this cylinder. Press Alt. Okay, and you remember that there is no problem. You can change the proportion. So I just group it, Command G, use Shift, and I have a very small bolt, but it is perfect to me. Okay, and so this bolt and his friend will spread along the rim. One funny fact is, you can be willing to have 5 bolts. Yeah, 5. Oh, yeah, odd number. It's okay. You play with 2D and 3D. So you use the polygon tool, and you will just spread and build a pentagon. The thing is, how magic is this a pentagon? Actually, when you use the polygon, as long as you have your mouse still click, which is the case right now, you use the up and down arrow of your keyboard, and you can add sides or reduce size. We'll see it later also for a triangle. Okay, so now I'm talking about the pentagon, so I'm talking about a 5-side polygon. Okay, it's here. Of course, it's a little bit big. I just need a very humble polygon, and this polygon I will just making fit the isometric grid. So you remember, if you have seen the first tutorial, you can just use skewing and rotating. That's what I'm doing now. And now I have flattened my polygon following the isometric rules. So it's here. It's a little bit big, so I use Control and Shift. Okay. And now what I do is I use my bolt. I can reduce it a little bit, and I just place the center of my bolt on every corner. I duplicate my bolt with Alt, and I press the center. Okay, and then when it's done, I just erase my pentagon, and now I have something that looks like a wheel. Of course, you can just take this ellipse, Command C, Command V. I still have Control and Shift, and okay, and I create some thickness here. Okay, so this is a wheel. I have my vehicle wheel. So like I said before, once you have one like this, you can just copy and paste and make another one with maybe another ellipse here, maybe one with a tire which is not so thick, and it can be. And once you have this kind of shape, you can do a dozen of it very fast. And then every time you do a new one, you put it inside the library, the symbol library, and so you will see it's so convenient. So it takes a little bit time. You see here I'm not super accurate about the position of my element, but you do it very clean the first time, and then after you can use it again and again. So what I'm doing now, like I said before, is easier to manipulate everything on this side. I just Command G, and I still have my angle constraint set to 30 degrees, so when I press Shift and I turn, I know that every time it will be like 90, 30, 120, etc., 150. And now I have it. And so I have my wheel. I have a nice wheel for my vehicle. Another basic solid, which can be a little bit tricky, is the cone. It's because of a tangent. So I start again with the same thing as usual. Okay, I have my 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, just need to center it. Okay, and now I will just build a triangle. Since here it will be the difficult part, I don't want to do it here and there, so I will just use the symmetry. So I just start with something quite simple. I put what I need is to put the height I need, and for the rest I will try my best to be really inside the tangent. And so to help, sometimes you see the thickness of a preview, because I have 1 point thickness, can be a little bit tricky. So I will use the Command Y, and I am in the outline mode. And my idea will be to be the closest I can to a tangent. Okay, it's not perfect, but it's not too bad. Okay, once I have this, I of course duplicate, Command C, Command V, and use the mirror here, flip horizontally. And then, okay, and then once it's done, I just need to select everything, and I go to my Boolean operation, and okay, I have it, and I have my cone. So depending on the level of accuracy you need, you can leave it like this, or you can be very specific, and you can check and you say, okay, maybe there is something a little bit tricky here, I want to be sure I'm not too bad actually, but sometimes you can have 2 nodes at the very close, you have to erase one of those, so we can work like this. But anyway, in this case we are not bad, so we can consider is the shape we need. So these two are probably tricky. We will see the next one, the most tricky but also the most interesting one, which is the sphere. But at least once you know how to use the cylinder, once you know how to use a cone, and of course all the square angle shapes, you have already a lot of assets you can create, and you have a lot of possibilities to create some world in isometric drawing. Okay, now let's talk about the isometric sphere. Isometric sphere is not complicated since it's roughly just a circle, but of course you may need just part of it, like you want half a sphere, a quarter of sphere. So in that case you will have to cut it according to the isometric rules. So before we do that, I just show the cube and how to cut a cube. Why? Because there is a link between the sphere and the cube, like there is a link between the square and the circle. So when you want to cut evenly a cube, you will use some kind of guides, these planes, horizontal cut or vertical cut, helps you to divide the shape. And here you can see this small cube. This small cube is 1/8 of a big cube, and you see that it can match the intersection of a plane. So that's the point. You create this cut with the plane, and after that you can select some pieces you need. So this is what we will do with a sphere, and it will help us to have every portion we need, every part of a sphere we need. Okay, so now we can start with an ellipse. So we remember that doing an ellipse means we are using circle, square as a reference. Okay. Once we have this first ellipse actually is like this horizontal plane. This is the same as this horizontal plane. So you have to imagine that it's not an ellipse, it's just a disc, see, and with some axis here, cross here and there, and it's the starting point. I would just copy and paste, Command C, Command V, and this copy I will transform it by rotating it minus 120 degrees. And this ellipse is like this plane here. I paste again, Command V, I go to the transform panel, and this time I rotate 120 degrees. And this is this plane. So despite the fact that this look like a quite nice flower pattern in 2D, actually is different discs that are positioned in the isometric space, in the isometric 3D space. What we need now is an envelope, like we had now, the envelope of a cube here. We need the same thing with our sphere. So we just paste again, and then we just change size to make a full circle by lifting and pressing Control, so you have the same proportion. Okay. It's not totally accurate, but it will be, you will see why. Anyway, right now we still have some very nice shape. We have the sphere and we have a plane, like we have plane here, the plane that cut this shape. So it's interesting. Okay. So what I'm going to do now, I will need two axes here and there, minus 120 and plus 120, to be able to cut my sphere into this direction. So I just copy by pressing Alt and drag this. I can make it bigger with Control and Shift. Okay, and I have so this angle that I need to cut later my shape. I just copy by Alt and Shift. Okay, and so now I have my two axes. I will need a vertical axis when it's time to cut 1/8 of a sphere. I will need some vertical axis. So I just use a rectangle. Okay, and it will bring me the vertical line I need. Okay, so now we have to be a little bit more accurate than before. I will explain to you why. This group of shape will be the beginning, will be the base for all the cut you will make later. Whatever you want, like the bottom half, like a quarter, right top, you will always start with this series of shapes, okay? And we will use for that a shape builder. But what happens is, if you are super accurate, let's say that we check the width of this ellipse is 80, so it means that our circle here, it should be 80 by 80. It's a little bit bigger, so I will make it 80 by 80. Okay, so now I know it's very clean, but we have to play a little trick. The shape builder works. You have to select a series of objects. You go to the shape builder, and then when you pass over intersection of some of this shape, even if they don't belong to the same object, of course, you have a possibility to make it another shape. So first thing, you have to check that everything is alright, and in our case intersections are not totally like here, they're not totally working because we want two on the left and right. You see this blue-green shape, there is only one, and I want to have two. I want one on the left, one on the right. Okay, so what I will have to do is I will change a little bit the size of my circle, and in that case I will make it lock, so we make it even. I make it a little bit smaller so we will touch inside the other ellipses. So let's say okay, and so now when I select the whole stuff and I go with my my tool, I can see that I have this and this which are two separate, and this and this which are separate. So this is what I need. Okay, so just keep this. So once you have done that, well, you're ready to go, because this shape, even if you take a little time to make it very clean and precise, this is the shape you will use for all your portions of sphere, and we will see how to do it now. Okay, so I spared you the boring part of copy, paste, alignment, etc. You know how to do it. So now just go into the method to do the different parts we need. So to make the process a little bit easier, I have put some captions, and it also helped me to follow the order and to be sure about not forgetting any of the shape I need. Because remember, it can be time consuming for the first time, but after that you have your own library, and you can reuse them in very, very different ways. Okay, so the principle of construction is you select everything here, you go to the shape builder tool, and you pass over, and then you click your mouse and you draw over all the shape you want, and when you release the mouse it will become one single shape. Okay, so this is how it works. See that's going everywhere I need. Right now I'm doing the top half. Okay, and I release. Okay, so now I've done the top half. This one was quite simple. I could have used maybe some Boolean operation, but we use the same method every time, and you will see that it's very convenient. The tool, sorry, is very powerful. So this is the first half, just very simple shape. The second half will be the bottom. So if it's the bottom, we will see the top of it. Means that we don't have one shape but two shapes. In that case, we have one side which is not visible here, one ellipse, but in the case of a bottom view, the bottom half, you will see it. So in that case, I will need to select two shapes consecutively. So I take my shape builder again. I'm starting with a cap. And when I release the key, the mouse, sorry, I have my object. Now I'm doing the bottom, and I release. And now I just need to erase all the useless part. And I have my second half. This half can be turned, rotated if necessary, to make them vertical or horizontal. Not all the shape can be mirrored and rotate, but some of them can. Okay, so now let's see the quarter. So, select everything, and I go to my shape builder. I release the mouse, and up, I have it. So I have a quarter, it's the one on the back and on the top. Now we will do the one on the back but on the bottom. And this one needs 3 shapes. Oh, sorry. So you see that you can have, depending on the point of view, on the orientation, you can have 1, 2 or 3 shapes to build. Keep on doing the quarter. Now we have the one in front and on the top. Here it is. Now I'm going to the one in front. Sorry. One in front, but the bottom. So as you can see, as long as you keep on pressing the mouse, clicking the mouse, you can go back and you see the little line, the little drawing that shows you where you have been. So now we are going to 1/8. We'll start with the one on the left. So this one can be duplicated half. So I just take I drag it when I'm having Alt and I flip it. So this one can be done like this. Now we go up. Okay. This one can be duplicated, copied as well. Press Alt and I drag, and now you go to the mirror, flip on the top here, flip over the top. Okay. So now this view, I select it again, and then I use my builder tool again. Okay. We have this friend just below him. Okay. And then we have the two facing us, in front of us. The one on the top first, and then the one on the bottom. last one. Okay. So now you can see you have a nice set of portions of sphere. Okay, so just to show you, I just copy the previous shapes and I filled them with just some shades to identify the volume. It's easier to read the volume this way. And so you see that you have proportions like half, quarter, and 1/8. Okay, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy this and you learn something. The next tutorial will be about building a high screen track in isometric drawing. See you soon.